Lucia, I think I saw you.
Here.
Yeah, and Alicia, great to see you. Welcome. Brian, I think I saw you here as well. Yep.
Yep. Happy New Year, all.
And Ian, I saw you. Jake, you're here. Amy, I believe I saw you. Um, Paul Gonzer, are you here? I didn't see you
Yeah.
yet. If you're
Hey.
here,
Hey.
welcome, Paul. Chris Johnson, I saw you. Gary Johnson, I saw you. Joe Levy, are you here? Not quite yet. Jamie, I saw you. Aileen, I saw you. And Jonathan Pira, yep, I see you as well. Julie, are you here with us today?
Hi, I'm here.
Welcome. And Tinsley. No, great. Well, I'll add any folks that to pick up later. So back to you, Jake. And that is definitely quorum. Only missing a couple of folks today.
Awesome. Love to see it. With that being said, we have enough people to vote for our December minutes. Can I get a second on that motion?
Second.
Awesome. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
All right. Thank you. You can lower your hands. All opposed? Chris, are you opposed? Okay. Got it. Awesome. I think we have no one opposed, so all votes were in favor. So the minutes are approved. With that being said, I'm just gonna check. We're a little ahead of schedule, so we don't have the mayor just yet. I don't know if either Amy, you wanted to say hi, or if Nanita, you wanted to switch to public comment, but either one works for us. Amy, I got a head nod, so you better go ahead.
I'm happy to say hello, and I asked Jake and Jonathan if I could sit in and join you all today in this meeting, and I wanted to just say hello, introduce myself. I'm Amy Ford. I'm the new DOTI director. I'm on day two, but not day two in familiarity with what we're doing with our Transportation Advisory Board and how you all work and function. I had great opportunity to have some long conversations with Jake and Jonathan and Alan and talk a little bit about the advisory board, where you were going, your goals for 24, and frankly, the relationship that Dottie has with you and how we continue to mature our experiences and our engagement in how we consider and what we're looking at as we look at our budgets, as we think about our priorities as we move into 24, how we think about the operations of Dottie and the relationship that we build again, and thinking about the services that we provide, asking for your engagement and how we move forward. And so I really am actually looking forward. I know Nick Williams obviously is our liaison and works very closely with you all. And I think there is opportunity for us to continue to grow that partnership. And so I'm looking forward to the discussions and really just wanted to sit and listen in today as you guys run through your agenda. And I think as we continue to move forward, looking forward to understanding as our district representatives and others, and frankly, how you see this transportation advisory group working and functioning, and our areas of opportunity for improvement, frankly. And so I look forward to that conversation. And I kill enough time to allow for the public comment or then for the mayor to come? But I'll stop it there, and then we can have some conversations. And happy to talk and answer questions too as we go along.
Thank you, Amy.
Not for the mayor just yet, but Nanita, I don't know what our public comment looks like today.
Yes, we have two, and we have June Churchill and David Mintz. June, I promoted you to the panelist. Let me know when you're in. June, are you in?
I am. I am. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Let me go ahead and get started then. Hello, members of the DOTI Advisory Board, and to all members of DOTI and City leadership on the call. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm the new 2024 Denver Bike Mayor, and I want to start my comment by sort of grounding us in the state of our transportation system. Colorado is currently off track to hit our emissions reduction goals because of transportation, right? In Denver, 31% of our total emissions are through transportation, and about 90% of all trips are done with cars. We just had one of the deadliest years ever on our roads because our streets are designed like highways and traffic flow is considered paramount in operations. In addition, we are sitting in severe non-attainment of ozone standards, both because cars themselves emit ozone precursors, but a fairly small amount actually, but mostly because the fuel of many of them is produced in our city, in our state, and refined near our city. I'm in the process of writing reports to sort of quantify these externalities and the true cost that our city bears for car dependence. But right now, I can say the climate costs and air pollution alone are greater than our entire transportation budget. But that's borne by our lungs, our neighbors' lungs, not by our city budget. However, by my estimate using data from the Victoria Transport Policy Institute, car dependence costs Denverites over $8 billion every single year from congestion, traffic, pollution, traffic crashes, land use impacts, and more. The status quo is not sustainable. Denver Moves Everyone projects that if we fail to adequately invest in our transportation system, congestion will get worse, emissions will increase, and serious and deadly crashes will double. By contrast, a walkable and green future, by far the most popular alternative presented by Denver Moves Everyone, would see significant declines in emissions, improvements in air quality, and improvements in safety. Active transportation investments keep money in our local community as well. By freeing Denverites from the severe financial burden that cars require, people could see annual savings in the tens of thousands at the high end, resulting in more discretionary spending and tax revenue going back to reinvest in our communities rather than flowing out of state to banks, oil companies, and car manufacturers. But transformation requires investment and commitment. Denver should commit to funding the entirety of Denver Moves Everyone by creating new streams of revenue so we can invest in high-quality bike lanes, transit service, and other micromobility solutions. Furthermore, bike lanes, transit, and sidewalks should be the last on the cutting block for budget cuts. They're less expensive to install, maintain, and repair on a per-mile basis, and are a critical piece of our transportation system that deserves strong support from the city government. By contrast, because of the immense cost to construct and maintain car infrastructure, those projects should be examined closely for their impacts both on the budget and on the lives of the people of the city. The simple fact is that when we invest in a safe, efficient, green, walkable, bikeable, and transit-oriented future, it helps everyone and pays for itself and then some. Thank you all for the time.
Thank you, Jane.
Anita, I think we still have a little bit of time if you want to promote David.
Give me 1 second. David, let me know when you're in. David, are you in?
I think I'm in. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I saw that there was speed reduction was a topic on this week's meeting, and I wanted to bring up one of my favorite topics in that area, and that's speed bumps. At City Council budget hearing this year, members were literally begging DOTI to install speed bumps in their districts. However, for some reason, DOTI has spent the past year piloting a speed bump study as if they were some kind of new design and innovation that hasn't been used for decades in cities all over the country. Denver has only installed about a dozen speed humps this year. Meanwhile, Boston, where I grew up, has a Vision Zero program that is installing 500 speed bumps every year. The reason given for Denver's go slow approach is snow plowing and emergency response. And I can speak firsthand in Boston that it does snow there and they do have fire trucks, and they seem to manage the speed bumps just fine. So I'm really asking that DOTI kind of stop these studies and really just do what needs to be done. And that's put in speed bumps on our neighborhood bikeways and our residential streets to help slow down cars. I'm hoping that maybe Director Ford could usher in a new kind of culture at DOTI where we stop studying everything to death and really just get things on the ground that people are really begging for these interventions. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
All right. Nanita, that was the end of our public comment, correct?
That's correct.
I'm not seeing the mayor just yet. I don't know if, Nick, are you providing a separate DOTI leadership update today?
I'm happy to provide a very brief one on that. I'm happy, ready for me. I'm happy to do it now.
You can go until the mayor arrives.
So that's a lot of pressure, a lot of vamping. Got a cookbook. I'll read some recipes here. No, just a few items. Of course, biggest news is Amy joining as our new executive director on that. So we bid farewell to Adam last week and on that, and are very excited to have Amy leading the ship at this point, and excited kind of with the direction we'll be heading with that. Kind of not as transportation based, but certainly impacting DOTI. Many of you probably saw the House 1000 effort concluded successfully, and I think ended up with over 1,100. I think 1,135 was the final amount on that. So that was, I think, very exciting for our team. We haven't talked a lot about that, but certainly on the vertical construction and kind of the encampment resolution operations on there were very instrumental on there. So making sure we thank our folks. Folks were working through the New Year's weekend on that, but certainly very proud to have met that. What was absolutely a stretch goal on there. So very excited about that. And then just real briefly on sidewalks, work continues on that with the stakeholder. We are getting to a point where we are starting to look at what costs would look like and kind of compare that to what was originally assumed in the ordinance on there. And yeah, committee work still continues, and certainly I always take the opportunity, the folks on this committee that also join us on that committee and get to spend a lot of time with their favorite deputy manager on that. Certainly appreciate that. Those were the items I had, Jake. Happy to answer any general questions if that helps us vamp for time. And I'm having computer issues, hence the weird angle here, and not just showing off that I have a ceiling fan.
Tinsley, I see your hand raised for questions for the DOTI update.
Yeah, and I think I had touched about this. I emailed you guys, but I know you guys are like extra super busy. So I wanted to just get an update on you kind of touched on this with the House 1000, but I was also wondering DOTI's plans for the migrant population and transporting them to different services throughout the city, or doing outreach in terms of transit. I know there's some going on. There's a particular website that people can go to access information, but I was just kind of wondering the update on that, or if anyone is going to allocate any type of funding or look for grants for that kind of stuff.
Sure. So that right now the city is in I think we maybe have talked about the Emergency Operations Center, and folks will remember emergency was declared as a part of homelessness. I think what folks may not remember was that was concurrent with a state of emergency around migrant arrivals here. And so for the past year, really, we have been working with kind of purpose of the EOC is to allow that collaboration across the city, and really forces that, whether you're either physically together or on a regular cadence meeting on that. And so that is organized at a broader level through the mayor's office and through the Emergency Operations Center on there. But DOTI, has been certainly participating in that effort, has been providing some drivers. We've been coordinating some transport, and unfortunately, there's been some overlap, as you've seen, between people experiencing homelessness and migrants arriving on that. And you may have seen in the newspaper a resolution operation last week out on Zunai that was moved folks from an encampment, primarily migrant encampment, to sheltering on there. And so absolutely there is budget being dedicated to this. I think last week Mayor talked about, on the scale of approximately $180 million on that. And so DOTI certainly continues to coordinate with that group. We are a part of the EOC operations on that and are always happy to help wherever we can. So far, that has been kind of in the transporting folks to shelters, things like that, kind of in a citywide collaborative effort. But absolutely more to come on that. That is not an issue that is solving itself immediately on that, but really proud to work for the city and kind of how they're approaching it, and really, it's an opportunity to really help folks that have gone through a lot. So definitely more to come on that.
Great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right. I think we have Janelle from the mayor's office here. Janelle, if I can go ahead and introduce you.
As I said before, you sure can. Apologies. I'm obviously a little bit under the weather. I have whatever bug everybody else has. But I am happy to be here. Sorry to join you a little bit late. Hopefully the mayor will be able to join us, but if he is not, I extend my greetings on his behalf. Just wanted to first introduce myself. I'm relatively new to the city and county of Denver. Formerly of the city of Chicago and state of Illinois, as an agency head and former employee of fleet and facility management and chief operating officer, and super excited to be working with Mayor Johnston and now Amy Ford, formerly Adam Phipps and team, and looking forward to be able to collaborate more with the DOTI Advisory Board. Excuse me. And I just wanted to say, one, this is, I think, my first advisory board meeting. And so looking forward to meeting you all virtually. Thank you. Meeting you all virtually and hopefully in person at some point in the very near future. And I am certain that you all have done a ton of work behind the scenes to help support DOTI and some of our big initiatives. And so to those who have worked formally and informally in supporting DOTI in this administration and in the previous, for that matter, I want to thank you for that. And I hope to continue that collaboration, the spirit of collaboration moving forward. Just maybe one moment before I turn it back over to the team, turn it back over to Jake and Nicholas. I think, as you know, Nicholas was kind of talking through some of our priorities and some of the successes that we've had. I think one of the things I'd want to say publicly, somewhat publicly, to my DOTI colleagues and to this advisory board is that DOTI has been a great partner at the table in the House 1000 initiative. People don't always think about all of the coordination and permitting and physical structure support and work and infrastructure work that is necessary to do lots of things, but in particular, moving folks, keeping the right-of-way clear, keeping the right-of-way clean, and just supporting us with just their professionalism and their thought partnership, and of course permitting and other key functions. And so I want to explicitly thank DOTI and team for that work, and to the extent that anyone in the advisory board formally and informally has been a part of that, wanted to extend that as well. The last thing that I would say is that I think Tinsley had asked a question, if I'm not mistaken, as I was popping on, about some of our new arrival plans. And so Nicholas is right. That's evolving. That's an evolving picture. We have a lot of new arrivals that we don't get to plan for, right? We have folks that do just show up. And we're trying as best we can to accommodate their needs, but also balance that against city resources, both with DOTI resources and others. And so what I would say is we're always open to thought partnership on that. We're always open to ideas and conversations about ways to maybe support needs differently. So if you have them, we will take them. But that is very much an evolving situation where we've got to just work through, again, meeting people where they are, physically meeting their needs, but also balancing that against city resources. So I'll stop there. I don't know that there are any questions for me, but happy to take some if there are any. And otherwise, I'll turn it back over to Jake and team. Julie has a question.
Yeah, so welcome. I think Denver's a nicer city than Chicago, but I'm biased. But if you have kind of coming in with, I love like kind of coming in with like fresh ideas and not you know, like not really with baggage of Denver that like anyone who's been here has, what would be success for you in 5 years or 4 years? Like what would you like, what's your vision for DOTI?
Oh wow. That is a very we don't have time for all that. I should have had a more I should have a more succinct answer. I might break it into a few parts if you guys are okay with that. I think my vision for DOTI is there's something to be said for back to basics, and that's kind of my vision for a lot of city agencies. There are just some core government functions, I call them government functions, but there are just some core functions of the work that DOTI does in my former life: streets and sanitation, Department of Transportation, water department, general services, fleet and facility management. That's all DOTI that no one thinks about until they're not going great, but they're critical services that meet people at their front door and their back door. And I think really are having the ability to kind of take a fresh look at some of those services and how we deliver those services critical. I would also say candidly how we deliver those services in light of some of our fiscal constraints also critical, and how we manage expectations around what does service delivery look like. So for me, I'm putting that all under back to basics, meaning just core services and like what that looks like, how we meet and or help set constituent expectations for how we deliver those services. That is probably goal number one. Number two is around, excuse me. Ooh. 2 and 3 are kind of related, but transportation and mobility. And I think you got to get the basics right, but still needing to walk and chew gum at the same time. So thinking about, you know, how do we build a more connected city, a more equitable city, a city that is accessible to everyone, and what does that look like? Having a true plan for that. I know there are plans. There are plans I haven't seen. There are plans that I probably have seen, but with a new administration, with an opportunity for some capital planning and bonding potentially in the very near future, what does that look like? Do we have different priorities? And I think having a new administration be able to have their kind of view on that would be part of my priority in terms of like the next 5 years. And with Amy's background, super excited to partner with her on that. And then I think the last piece, which does not sound interesting to most folks, but I think is critical, is, you know, we work with a lot of partners to get the work done. And I say we, DOTI, we, the city and county, to get the work done. And I think understanding maybe a little differently how we partner, how we team with contractors and vendors to do the work. We probably have some opportunities to look at service delivery a little differently. And so, again, Amy and I have talked about this as we were having conversations before she said yes to join the team. Oh, hey, Mayor.
Hello.
You joined right on time. I was being asked the question of what's my vision and sets of goals for DOTI, and I was wrapping up on number 3, and then you joined. So
Perfect. I'm glad you've managed it all.
So I'll stop there since we've got the guest of honor for a few moments. And Mayor, I don't know how much time you have with us, but we just went through some introductions. There was some Q&A. I got introduced and shared, like I said, my vision and goal for DOTI is over the next 5 years. And there are 1 or 2 questions in queue, but I don't know if you have any thoughts before you have to jump that you want to share with the DOTI team or listen in.
Johnson.
Huh?
The mayor is on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm on mute. No, delighted to be here. I have a good chunk of time. So I think I have, I don't know, another 15 minutes or something, or 20 minutes. So happy to stay and answer questions or chat with people on whatever works for them on timing. But yeah, first of all, so grateful to this advisory board for all of your work and partnership. Really excited about our new head of DOTI, Amy. I'm not sure if she is on or not today, but I think someone with some tremendous both expertise and history. Oh, yeah, there's Amy. Fantastic. Thanks, Amy, for joining. So really excited about her arrival. And I think our vision is both how do we continue the great level of customer service that DOTI has built around partnership on core public services that we think are both effective and efficient and meet the needs of residents. How do we have DOTI play a key role in accelerating our permitting process as we're working on how to make the entire city a more desirable place to build things and an easier place to manage getting permits, getting them approved, and getting construction done and completed. I think that's one we're working on with CPD and Host and Fire and others, but DOTI will play a key role there. And then how do we help build a build and implement really a broad vision around mobility across the city so that it's an easy place to walk, bike, ride, and also still drive to get to and from places with easy access to mobility, and how to do that with a mind towards both environmental stewardship and placemaking, so people have a sense of spaces they want to be in, want to share with their families and friends, and feel like they are at home all around the city. So I think excited about all of those, but really grateful for all of your work in this capacity, and happy to open it up to any questions people may have, or also happy to defer to Amy or Janelle on any things they may want to add.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. I know one of the items that had come up from this group was they were curious what lessons were learned during the transition committee. I don't know if you could cover on that topic a little bit for us.
Yeah, happy to talk about that. I mean, I think there was a lot of really great feedback we got from the transition committee about what was currently working well at DOTI, both obviously great team and great staff. I think the ability to manage large, complex portfolios of work and the ability to get Go bonds and other programs up and running, I think has been a real success. I know we have questions about how we get enough staff to support the workload. As we know, the workload is very high and significant across the city. I did see the feedback, obviously, around the permitting process, which we know is something we want to improve all across the city, and we're committed to. And I know there's more feedback about how we think about enhancing mobility options all around the city and what the next phase of that work is, and excited for Amy to help us lead that going forward. So I felt like those were all valuable pieces of feedback that we thought were resonated with what I've heard around the city and what we found from internal conversations as well, and what we felt like Amy was well positioned on multiple fronts to be able to lead those combination of needs. And so I'd say those are things that stuck out to me on feedback that I both saw from the report and heard from the leaders in the transition that I talked to.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor. And Amy's been great in our first conversations with her. And one final thing before kind of open it up more broadly, I don't know, you tell us when you need to stop, but one final question we had as a board was, what can we do to best support you from a DOTI advisory board perspective, in addition to Amy and the department's efforts?
I appreciate that. I mean, I think I'd love to hear Amy's answer to that, but since she's only on like day 4 in the job, I'll take the first swing. I think my sense is, one is it would be helpful for me for you all to keep me apprised of top priorities from you in places where you think we are doing a great job, you want us to do more of, and places where you think we are falling short that you want us to do better at. I'd love to have that regular feedback from you all. We trust you to be good, critical friends in that way. And the second is, we'd love to actually be able to better communicate with you, I think, proactively on the priorities that we're leading on and things that we are pushing on, what we're hoping to get done there, and how we hope you can help both improve those plans and also be ambassadors for those plans out in the community as we get up and rolling. And so those would be my two, is just open lines of communication and advocacy, both from you to us and from us back to you. But Amy, what would you add?
Yeah, and guys, I apologize if I'm saying it looks like I've got some funny connection here too. But you know, I think I talked a little bit about that as I also introduced myself. And I think that as we look at the Transportation Advisory Board and the work that you all are doing, the engagement that you have and questions that you're asking, there's a couple of things that role plays. One, it's about transparency. Two, it's about continued accountability and how we program and where we move our services and our systems that we are working together to build to increase mobility into our infrastructure services. But I also think the third piece of this is the efficiency and the effectiveness of what the advisory board is doing. And that means how we actively engage and work with you collaboratively as we have large programs and decisions that we want to engage in your input and feedback. That's number one. The second is the feedback and the input you provide for us. And so, June, welcome to the call. I look forward to meeting with you on Thursday. As we know, we're going to sit and have some good conversations. And I think that each of you are representing different districts. You're working collaboratively with your council and others, and how to create that role as this board as an integrator in those kinds of conversations and being able to play that flow through of the information. And you know, these are conversations with Jake and Jonathan in regards to, as we to mature, I think there's sort of really three roles that we can play. One is that information sharing. Two is that engagement as we are looking and seeking feedback and notes and opinions from a community at large and you. And then the third is actual decision making and capacity to help us with a policy and programming, and recognizing that those discussions are ones that we need to program, be thoughtful about, and articulate, and really as they fit overall into the goals of how we think about creating a vibrant Denver. And as he's noted, there are these stuffs that we are going to continue to move forward and articulate about how we continue to serve community and how we also sort of meet the needs and the demands that are happening with our city right now in regards to the humanity of how we respond to many of the issues that are facing us. We had questions earlier about our migrant services and how we're supporting that. So I think the real answer to this is working together and actively doing that and making sure that it is a program approach on how we do that.
Awesome. Thank you both. Do we have any questions from the board?
There's a couple in the chat.
Jamie or Lucia, read yours out loud.
And I see them. I'm happy to jump in, or Jamie, Lucia, if you want to jump in, go right ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, mine wasn't so much, you kind of asked us what we would like to see, and I just put my answers. I'd love to see much safer streets. We still have record numbers of people dying on our streets, especially people outside of cars. And I know we have Vision Zero program, and I would like to see that enforced, enacted, more things going to support that so that our roads are not killing grounds. Every weekend I see the Twitter reports from the Denver police of road accidents and pedestrian car interactions, and it's just heartbreaking how many there are, which seem to be very predictable and preventable. So that's what I would hope to see out of DOTI. Thank you.
I really appreciate that, and I agree. We are totally committed to that. I feel like there's been so much good work done on both the Vision Zero and on the Denver Moves Everyone plan, and how do we help to work on implementing and executing those in effective ways. And I think we're excited to get to work on that, and excited to have Amy's help on that. But I completely agree with you that we want all these streets to be safe and people to feel safe in any neighborhood, wherever they're out walking, biking, outside of their cars. And we know that the current results are unacceptable in terms of that level of human life loss, and we have to reverse that. Did you want me to take on the second one?
Sure. We had another one that was from Jamie that was maintaining core services is a good goal. However, pedestrian safety needs to improve. What will be your steps to lower deaths in Denver?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think connected to some of Lucia's point where we want to make sure that we do have structure, services, support, places where we can use traffic slowing measures, where we can take those high risk locations where we know we have the greatest fatalities, and we can add safety measures, whether it's crosswalks, whether it's street narrowing, whether it is traffic management. We want to do all the things we can in those places to increase safety and decrease risks. And so I think those are items we're totally committed to and look forward to working on collaboratively with you all and your input. Amy, also happy to have you jump in if you have additional thoughts you want to add on context to those questions.
Yeah, no, I think you summarized a lot of the focus. And obviously, as you know, we have our Vision Zero plan. We're activating that again and pulling into our action planning process. I know, Jonathan, you've made a note here in the chat about the incredible work that we're doing in regards to migrant response and the desire to sort of preserve funding for our Vision Zero efforts and sort of how we think about that. And so sort of summarizing that comment there, and I'll certainly let you ask that as we go along. But, I think that those are some of the theses challenges we also want to continue to talk with you all about is how we engage, how we look at that action plan, what we think about from a policy perspective to programmatic efforts to our capital construction and sort of our capital improvements programs as well, and the prioritization of that. And I think that the short note about Vision Zero is there is no easy solution to how we tackle these problems. And I think that that's some of what we'd like to continue to have discussions with you about. How do we assess and look at our populations who are the most vulnerable right now on our roadways? The relationship that has with our migrant services, for instance, and those who are unhoused. How do we continue to build programming around that really does a deep dive? So when we talk about Vision Zero, it's not just Vision Zero, but how we radically pursue Vision Zero. And so these are the conversations that I think we want to be able to have with you, and doing so respectful, Jonathan, as you noted, of the constraints and the challenges that we have and how we continue to execute those programs moving forward.
All right, I want to be respectful of the mayor's time. I know we had you scheduled until 4:40. If you have more time, it looks like we've got 2 more questions. If you don't, totally understand. We're headed overtime here.
The short answer was about are we pursuing, I think, federal resources around this, the support for migrant services? And the answer is yes. I'm actually going to be out in D.C. next week. I've been talking with the White House regularly and with the Senate and with Alejandro Mayorkas, who's the Secretary of Homeland Security. I'll be out there meeting with mayors next week to advocate on more federal funding. There is a supplemental bill in the Congress that is a part of this comprehensive deal to try to get funding for Ukraine and Israel and the efforts at the border, and we're pushing to try to get funding out of that. So we are pushing hard for that, either through congressional action and or through executive action. The White House has been very helpful. Department of Homeland Security has been very helpful. The challenge is we have to get a measure that can get through the Republican-held House, and that is what's holding us up right now. So we're pushing very hard on that because we'd like to avoid having to spend all those dollars just locally at the city, which we don't think we should need to. So working very hard on that, absolutely. Kinsley, did you want to jump in for the last one?
Yes, hi. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Janelle, for joining us tonight. Sorry, I'm also under the weather, so my voice sounds terrible. But I did have a couple of really brief questions, and I wanted to kind of circle back around to the public comment that we had tonight surrounding speed bumps. And I feel that he was really touching on the points of the contractor issues that DOTI has been facing in regards to being able to get some of their plans done, whether it be Vision Zero or other projects that they're working on. To that point, I was just kind of wondering your plan of, or what you guys are starting to talk about in terms of how to build better contractor relationships, how to build better services that sometimes there's issues with, like contractors and things like trash cans, or we can't get a bus stop because of certain issues or contractor issues or holdups. I think historically, especially in the Northeast, that has been kind of a problem overall, is we can't get anything else because there's a lot of other issues happening. So I would like you to kind of talk about what some of your plans maybe for the far Northeast are, or how to combat some of those problems with the contractors that DOTI's facing and the city's facing overall.
Great. I'll do a quick answer, Tinsley, and then let Amy answer the substance of that one.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, I get the chance of representing the Northeast State Senate for years. Spent a lot of time in Green Valley Ranch and Montello and Gateway, and know a lot of what I think, and even North Park Hill, what had been under-resourced communities on many fronts, but certainly infrastructure is part of that. And so we're keenly aware of those inequities and trying to figure out how we make sure we get the services that are needed to those communities that have been the last ones served. And so I would just say that's at the top of our priority list. I've been talking to Councilman Lewis about that repeatedly as well. And so definitely committed to that on an equity lens for us around the city. I'll let Amy jump in and talk about the details of the contractor adjustments, but love to stay in touch to make sure we deliver outcomes on that front in Northeast Tinsley. And then just want to say a huge thank you to the advisory board for having me and for all the incredible work that you all do. I'm really excited to get to work with you together over the next 4 years, and hopefully we'll get to meet in person at our next conversation and sit down and have a beer. I'm here at the Mercury Lounge for the next meeting of the day, so I will have a beer in your honor at least. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And Nick, also feel free to join in that conversation. But Tinsley, I think you're asking a fair question, and I think there's several layers to unpack there in what you're talking about from a question perspective. We have program projects that are moving forward, and how we choose to contract those, and how we move those efficiently, how we move through our planning cycle. So how do we have approved plans? How do we move to contracted through our procurement process? How do we frankly get someone onto the street, onto the road, into the development and the execution of that program? And that's something from our program managers and our city engineering teams and others that actually we're continuing to evaluate and to look at process improvement cycle and how we're thinking about how we execute those projects and the process by which we can expedite them and continue to move them forward. I think a fair comment is made about us studying things to death, and sort of how do we move from idea to concept to something that you would actually see implemented. And that's a priority for me, actually, as we continue to explore this, because we have windows of performance that we really want to be able to hit, and we can talk a little bit about things like those performance indicators and others that we do when we want to be able to deliver, whether it is our additional bike lanes or how we are thinking about the execution of certain programs. Speed bumps, I unfortunately have not had a chance to sort of dig into where we are and where that look is on our study, and Nick, feel free to jump in on that. But I think that that's an important piece. So that's one element. The second element, I think, is to your point, Tinsley, about sort of the competing interests that we have, in various districts and others. And while I want to speak directly to the sort of the challenges that we see in your district and your area in the Northeast, but I think I recognize that how we balance those needs and how we execute those through programming like what we did with Denver Moves Everyone, where we're moving now with, let's say, Denver Moves with our bicycle update, where we're programming for that. But then frankly, how we do a prioritization of our capital programs and how we choose to execute those. And I think that we owe it to you all for some continued discussion and transparency on how we program those. And so there's nothing like seeing that you're on the list 40 years from now. And then there is also an understanding of where our allocations of our budget and how we procure those, and then again, how we program them out. So I think that's some continued discussion that we need to have as a group so that we all understand that. Frankly, understanding is knowing, and knowing is at least an explanation about where we are in the phasing and the timing. It's nothing like being in sort of an abyss where you don't have that kind of knowledge and understanding about the balance of how those programs and what they mean in your district. And those are some of the discussions that Frank, Nick, and I have been also having about how we have that district level conversation with you, with council, with others, with our community design teams and others, so that you can see sort of the synergy and how it all applies in your particular program, in your particular district. So I think work yet to be done. And Mike, I see you come on camera too. And so I don't know if you all had anything that we wanted to add. But I appreciate the question. More to do. But go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
No, yeah, that was probably Mike's worst nightmare, to come on and immediately be called on. So,
right, you literally come on camera, and I'm like, talk, because you popped up right in front of my face. So.
No, Amy, I think you really hit it. There is absolutely an urgency to really build out we're kind of thinking of it as a safety system, and I think that really shows how connected all of these different things are. And so, yeah, not much to add, Amy. I think you nailed it on there, but certainly understand the urgency. And you'll hear more about that. We've got Rolf and Mike here joining us to talk about some of our Vision Zero activities. And, good budget times, tough budget times, again, that remains a tremendous priority for the department.
Thank you, Nick and Amy. All right, I have the honor of hosting the most jumbled agenda of our DOTI board history here, I think, today. So thank you, everyone, for your patience as we went very out of order on our agenda items, but it really allowed us to use the time well. With that being said, Amy, this was a terrible way to have your first conversation with us. So if you have anything else you want to add, or if Nick, you had any DOTI leadership items, we will hand it over to Rolf at 4:55.
I feel like we've had a good start to the conversation, and some of what I've talked with Jake and Jonathan about, and Nick and I have had this discussion as well, is again how we continue to grow this relationship and how it is put to best use and is productive, really, on behalf of our constituents, on behalf of the residents of Denver and where we go, and programmatically, as Rolf and Mike sit and talk about programs like Vision Zero and how we have an intensive focus and singular focus on where we do and how we deliver safety. I would love to sit and chat with you all a little bit later about how you continue to articulate the priorities that you are seeing and how we manifest that in things like budget and otherwise. And I know that you already had some conversations. I'm late to the party, obviously, during the budgeting process here several months ago, but I look forward to that continued collaboration.
Amy, I'm just going to add one quick thing. I see a question in the chat. I'm a slow scroller. So there was I think Jamie asked a question about, and if I miss other questions, I apologize, about if there's something I've seen in Chicago that's worked well to address pedestrian safety. It's controversial, so I'll just put it out there. And in some instances, what I'll talk about has worked. This tool has worked. In some instances, not as much. And so it is something that I think we'll look more at in the context of Vision Zero. But speed and traffic cameras have had mixed effect, but in some cases, really positive effect to driver behavior in Chicago. And it's loaded with lots of context and lots of things. And so that's a broader conversation for a different day and also a different context in Chicago than Denver, certainly. But even from my limited time here in Denver, some of the traffic patterns I've observed in the way that people treat orange or amber lights, yellow lights versus red lights and just kind of speed through them. I mean, there have some behavior. I've seen behavior changes. Data has borne out behavior changes in Chicago, again, in some intersections, not in all, around speed and red light cameras. And so I think it is a tool for the Vision Zero toolkit. I know that there's lots of conversation, lots of studying to be done around that kind of work. But that is one thing that I actually have seen a lot, actually pay dividends in terms of changing driver behavior, not just in the places where those cameras exist, but in general, because you do become conditioned to drive differently in certain zones with certain postings over time. There's another comment in the chat. Let me see what that's looking like. Oh, you're welcome. But that's one. And there are certainly a few others. I mean, one of the things I'll just say candidly is that I'm learning a lot about Denver as a community, as a city, as a county, its infrastructure. And so there's a lot for me to learn. And so I'm very much looking forward to meeting some of you all one-on-one or even in smaller groups just to kind of understand more just your perspective, your backgrounds. It's also a different kind of landscape than Chicago. Oh, my light just went off. Different landscape than Chicago. So I'm learning that as well. But I mean, physical landscape, infrastructure than Chicago. So I'm learning that as well. But again, happy to answer questions that you guys have now and or later. I'm hoping to join more of these conversations in the future. And so if there's ways for us to remain more connected, I'm actually looking forward to that, as well as working, of course, with Amy and her team.
Jake, I had a question for Amy. Amy, are you your background is CDOT, correct? Did you come from?
Yeah, it's varied. Yep. So I have a long background with CDOT.
Do you think that's going to help because of the relationship? A lot of the major thoroughfares in Denver are CDOT, Denver shared. Right. Do you think that's going to help?
I certainly hope so. And obviously our team has been working very closely with CDOT on a variety of these different corridors, whether it's through Colfax BRT, how we're looking at programming with Colorado Boulevard, Federal Boulevard, et cetera. I think there's a lot of collaboration to be had. There's I think a focus on both sides about increased mobility, increased opportunity for what I'm going to call complete streets design and increased opportunity for transit. I also think there's also opportunity for us to think about how we collaborate and sort of work more effectively when we think about things like speed reduction and others on these major corridors. And I think you've got an interesting and willing partner within CDOT who's transitioned and thinking about different kinds of rules of how the state agency works on what I'm going to call also city streets, right? So I certainly hope my experience and relationships and working with them will continue to assist in that. And I know that we've got a lot yet left to tackle, right? There's a lot of program. And I don't know, Jamie, if you have any perspectives on some of that. Certainly perspectives on, as you represent the group that you do in regards to, accessibility, ADA, how we look at different funding opportunities, collaboratives on grant programs, et cetera, that continue to move some of these things forward. But I'd love your thoughts on that.
All right. I do think we need to start transitioning to our next topic. So thank you very much, Director Ford and Mrs. Ford. That is very similar.
We made that very simple for you guys, didn't we?
We made it tough for you guys.
I know.
I appreciate it. Would love to begin our transition to the speed reduction efforts conversation so that we have enough time to get through that presentation if that team is ready for us.
I believe we are ready. I see Mike King and also Ted Porras on the call. Without further ado, I'd just like to say good afternoon and thank you for the opportunity to present about the Vision Zero initiative with regards to our most recent speed reduction efforts. My name is Rolf Eisinger. Many of you have seen me before presenting here. As stated in our recently released Vision Zero Action Plan, which again presented back in July, vehicle speed is a significant factor in crash severity and frequency. And that is why, as many of you have probably read in the action plan, it is one of our Vision Zero themes, which includes improved street design to force safe speeds through the use of technology that encourages safe behaviors such as speed. And with that, I'd like to introduce Mike King, who did lead our DOTI citywide speed reduction feasibility study. And he will also provide an update on the local street default speed limit sign replacement project. And then we have Ted Porras from DPD, who manages the safety camera program, or the automated speed safety camera program. So with that, we do have a quick slide deck that addresses your all's questions that you sent ahead of time. And Mike, if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen with the few slides, and then happy to answer as many questions as we can.
Yep, and I just hit share. It looks like host would have to give me access to share screen if that's possible. And if not, I can send it along to someone to share for us.
Do you think you could help us with that? Or Nick?
Let's see. Sorry, Nanita had to step away for just a second. I'm going to be vulnerable here. Does anybody know how to do that?
Find Mike's name and click on the three dots to the right of it, and you should be able to make him a co-host or allow him presentation access.
Thank you. Oh, shit. Excuse me.
If it's not an option, I can go without slides. Mainly just kind of notes and will help out for visual. But
let's see. Did that work, Mike?
Let's see. There we go. Right. Should do that right. There we go. All right. Thank you, everybody. And Amy, you really got me on that quick curveball at the start there. Not
Totally
usually
set you up. Sorry about that, Mike.
no problem at all. I usually ready for that, but yeah, it really threw me off. So won't happen next time, I promise. But yeah, as Rolf said, my name is Mike King. I am the principal city planner on the Vision Zero program here at DOTI. Lead pretty much anything and all things speed related when it comes out of the Vision Zero program. On the planning side, we have some engineers that also support this effort as well, that are very key parts to that team. But to cover the questions you all had shared. I set up a few slides, 3 or 4 slides here to talk through, but also want to make it open for conversation. So I'll go through the slides first, and then if we'll have Ted run through his slides, and then maybe we have a pretty solid conversation about speed in Denver. So the key topics you all wanted to talk about, speed limit reduction feasibility study status, and that has been completed. I'll go over that on the next slide. The new local default speed limit sign replacement status, also something we'll cover. And then lastly, again, Ted will talk about the safety camera program since the state law has changed. So the question for speed limit reduction feasibility study, it seems like most of you had heard of it, but didn't know really what it was. I know we've talked about studying things to death. This one was intended to give us a path forward for action items rather than just saying, hey, we'll study this to get to the next study. This is kind of the North Star with speed limit setting and updating in the city. So the scope really was to understand that keyword feasibility, really understanding what needs to be done from the city side to achieve speed limit reductions in our city, focusing specifically on cost, time, and staff availability. So rather than some of our studies where we're looking at the actual usability of something or how something has worked in other cities, this is really going past that, understanding kind of what Seattle and Portland did with 20 is plenty, figuring out how we can do it here, not just like if it would work here, it's will it work here, but then how do we do it? How do we achieve it successfully? And with that North Star, you'll see the kind of phases here below as well. One is that local speed limit reduction that we'll talk about. Again, that's the 20 is plenty program. 2 are policy changes. Some big policies have changed in the last year here at DOTI, and then the high injury network sign density project that we're moving forward with as well. So for the speed limit reduction, so for each of these, I have a little bit more detail. First and foremost, I know that I presented to you all regarding this local speed limit reduction. For those that did not see that, very, very, very high level, just quick 2 bullets on it. Last year, actually, I guess it was probably 2 years ago now, council changed the ordinance from for all local streets from 25 to 20 miles an hour. So any unsigned street in the city, which are local streets, are now set to 20 miles an hour. As a result of that, we do have local streets that do have signs on them. So we went out and developed a plan to change those signs from 25 to 20 miles an hour, but also use that as an opportunity to more strategically place our signs. I think one of the most interesting parts of this was we really came into it with the mindset of eventually we'll have our self-driving cars. And right now we have a lot of those vehicles that have the speed trackers from delivery vehicles to our city fleets, and they use a camera to identify what the speed limit is on a street. So we made sure that we put our speed limit signs as the entry point on any neighborhood street right off of our arterials and collectors. So it's very clear as you enter a neighborhood. For the average user, they'll see it, but then for the regular roadway user, again, those fleet vehicles, that's the first thing it sees, and it'll be able to say, hey, this person is exceeding the speed limit that's posted on that street. Policy changes. We'll jump to this and then we'll jump back to the progress on 20 is plenty. But the policy changes, a few big ones happened last year. We updated our school zone policy. This is going to kind of follow that local speed limit policy that's been changed. And the big key takeaways of our school zone policy and procedure updates are making it fully inclusive to include elementary school, middle school, and high school with speed limit reductions. Previously, it was just elementary schools. Identifying a way to set the static speed limit to 20 miles an hour in all of our school zones. This is something that we're still working on CDOT with. A lot of our schools are on CDOT roadways. And then on our local streets, have our school zones be all-time school zones. I know that means, like I said, 20 is already the school zone speed limit, or sorry, the local street speed limit. Our school zones are also set to 20 miles an hour, but what that really means is the fines still double in school zones outside of school times. For those that have kids and know that their local elementary school turns into a regional park every weekend. You have your playgrounds, you have your basketball courts, you have your fields. This is why we wanted to make those local street school zones all times. So that is not going to be an overnight process for changing those signs. I do want to make that very clear. The 20 is plenty was, we had to do a full citywide 4,000 sign change for 20 is plenty. There are fewer signs for school zones, but a lot of them are flashing beacons, are much more expensive, and a lot more goes into that. So this is the start of a great program. We don't have schedule or anything on that yet, but our Safe Routes to School folks are really getting started on that. Take a quick pause. I see Tinsley, you have your hands up. Oh, I lose you. Cool.
Sorry,
Hop
I was
back in.
muted.
Go ahead.
No, the school zone policy and procedure updates that you were talking about. As I'm sure you're completely aware that the far northeast has a lot of problems also with speed reduction around schools. And I guess my question is, how are you going to make sure you guys are getting all the schools? I mean, I know it's still like a process that's happening, but like what is, I guess my first question is, what is a dream timeline for you guys to have all of this in order for all of the schools? And then also, is there like a certain order or priority? Do you guys know that yet?
Dream timeline is obviously as soon as possible, but it's going back to that feasibility of the cost. The cost on a lot of these is going to really push this out a couple years. We'll be doing a few each year. I just don't know what a few means yet. But we do have a full database of where all of our schools are located. We do also have a full citywide scan of all of our assets. So meaning flashing beacon signs. So we know where all the signs are. We know where the schools are. Now it's just a matter of really developing that plan to get it going. And mentioning far northeast, where this really came from, the conversation started because of the high school on 56th Ave. That school currently has a school zone that is listed at 40 miles an hour, which is shocking. So that was really where we saw the start on this, which is why we had to set the default, but then also had to look at high schools as well. So
are you guys also going to allocate, sorry, I just had a follow-up question real fast while my brain was thinking. Are you guys also going to be prioritizing, like when you're looking at each individual school and you know what signs they have, which ones need them more? Are you guys going to be planning to prioritize? Because I mean, some of them do already have like flashing beacons or some of the things that are at least at bare minimum okay. But I'm just kind of wondering for the schools that are like completely just sunk in this ship.
it's I wouldn't say one happens before the other. It kind of, for the low hanging fruit, those ones will kind of start going automatically with some of the quick changes. A lot of it is just changing what some of the flashing beacon when the time comes on and that kind of stuff. But excuse me. For the larger ones, they will run in tandem, but just on a longer schedule, if that makes sense. I think, did you have a second question on that, or did I miss? Sorry. Okay, never mind. But yeah, so that's school zone policy. The other two policies and procedures that were updated are speed limit sign placement procedure. Fun title there. Sounds like a pretty simple thing, but we've learned a lot from other cities, specifically Seattle on this one, where increasing the speed limit sign density on a corridor actually has a pretty significant decrease in high-end speeders. So what that means is right now, say we have mile spacing or half mile spacing with our speed limit signs on our streets. Doing something as simple as making that quarter mile spacing makes that speed limit more visible to the average user and those extreme speeders, and has had a positive influence in Seattle on very similar streets to streets that we have here in Denver. So that's one of the key takeaways from that Simon's placement procedure. And then just kind of cleaning it up, the simplicities of making sure it's not put behind vegetation, making sure that if there's a future bus island that goes in, the sign is moved to the other side of the bus island. I'm sure we've all seen one of those signs that just built into a tree at this point, trying to avoid that at all costs, and really just giving our ops crews the opportunity to say, hey, this doesn't have to get installed exactly where it is on the plan. Maybe it can come 5 feet further in front of that tree. Just giving them that flexibility, where previously it was just saying where this is on the plan, make sure it gets installed. And then lastly, slow zone policy procedure. This one's exciting as well. This is something that we've kind of coined as the family or adult school zone where you see major pedestrian crossings that are happening. I use some of our regional parks as examples. Downing next to Wash Park. Excuse me. Oh no. Starting on my end. Wash Park is a similar example, as a good example with Downing Street. Um, we have a lot of people that park on Downing Street along Wash Park and cross directly from where they park their car. We could install an RFB or reflective hawk signal at every intersection. We most likely still won't be able to channelize those crossings to those intersections because where you park, you just cross the street, you get right into the park. So having this tool in our toolbox when we're looking at pedestrian crossing improvements will be very helpful, where a slow zone will really operate similar to a school zone at all times, and then also just have a little bit of uniqueness where we'll have bulb outs or maybe hardened center lines, things that really make the vehicles or drivers have to slow down more than just having a typical sign out there as well. And then the next one coming up, and I know I've talked a lot about policy, and I'll jump to the more fun looking at things that are actually being installed, but it's setting speed limit policy. For those that are unaware, MUTCD just updated their handbook within the last month at this point, removing a lot of the red tape that previously was there for setting speed limits. And we're going to make sure that we reflect those removals of red tape and making sure that our setting speed limit policy is more context sensitive rather than just based off of the data on the roadway. So a lot to unpack there. If anybody, I can pause for a quick minute for policy, or we can just jump right into next steps here.
Hey, I had a real quick clarifying question here. Mm-hmm. Just to get my sort of order of operations right. Maybe you're about to touch on this. Are these policy changes part of the study, or did you finish the study and what you're doing now is updating policy as a result of the study?
The latter. So
gotcha.
we've
completed
the study. Study is available publicly online. I know it's not the easiest to find things on our website sometimes, so happy to share that with you all after this meeting as well. But that was really what that study was doing, is like, what are the next steps for success? And that's where all of this is coming from now, including then that next one, which is the high injury network speed limit sign density. And that's directly reflecting that speed limit sign placement procedure update that I just spoke about. So we've collected speed data on our high injury network. We had previously collected in 2019. We've now recollected in 2023 to identify corridors where we want to increase that sign density. If there's an opportunity to decrease speeds, we'll look at the speed limits. We'll also look at that. But there is also the time when a road is set to the proper speed, people just aren't driving it. So using those the tools that we have to make sure that people are operating at that operating speed is our goal. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hey, Mike. Yeah, quick follow-up on that comment about MUTCD. Given that new MUTCD update was very recent, and it sounds like the study was completed some time ago, are you able to incorporate some of those new permissions given to you into the new policy updates, or do we need to go revise the study? If that question makes sense.
The study pretty much said, look into this. This is a policy that needs to get updated. It didn't say timeline or what needs to be focused on, and it was written in a way knowing that MUTCD update was coming. The study was finished, I think, in 2022 when we first heard about the MUTCD update coming. It just took a little bit longer than anticipated, but it's kind of hitting right on cue with when we wanted to get started on this anyway, so it worked out. So last slide here, just about our 20 is plenty rollout. It was never officially coined 20 is plenty in Denver for a few reasons, but happy to call it 20 is plenty for simplicity's sake. The big kind of updates here, I think the questions you all had specifically is how's 20 is plenty signage going? Right now we're working with RoadSafe, which is a contractor out here to do this work rather than our internal crews. The reason being is going all the way back to that feasibility study conversation of cost, staff hours, and timeline. Kind of when we look at that, it's one of those things always has to be higher for the other ones to be successful. So we said, let's reduce staff time, reduce how long this is going to take, but increase costs. So we spent money to just get this done rather than moving forward with just kind of trying to do a couple neighborhoods here and there each year. As a result of that, RoadSafe has taken this as an opportunity to get this done as quickly as possible while driving the speed limit. But I very much appreciate the work they're doing so far. The latest timeline, we're on track. I did not have a cough until like 20 minutes ago. I feel like something's going on with this call today, guys. But we're on track. We're actually ahead of schedule right now. So we are we are on track to complete this year. Our initial estimation was to finish next year. So this year being 2024, get this completed. I do want to put caveats on that. We always say caveats when we're talking timeline. Our contract with RoadSafe expires in 2025. So they have the opportunity to say, hey, we're going to take a break on this project for 6 months and come back, and they're still technically under that same contract and legally fine with doing it that way. Having talking to them, that is not their plan, but it's always just a potential hiccup that could happen. So I just want to be clear. I'm saying this should be done this year, barring any unforeseen circumstances with them going and working on a larger project elsewhere. What you're seeing here also, I guess I should have talked about the slide before just going into the questions, but a few things you're seeing here on the slide, mainly on the right side is our internal sign installation tracker that we've developed with our GIS folks. This tracks where all the signs have been installed, replaced, or removed. The reason why we do remove some signs is we'll have signs deep within the neighborhood that maybe 2 or 3 people see at a time. It increases maintenance costs. They're not very useful to be where they are. So we move those closer to those intersections like I described previously. But everything
What are
you're
the
seeing,
colors on the map? There's
that's what I was about to say. Yeah.
Okay.
So everything you're seeing here that's grayed out is completed. RoadSafe has gone through, installed, removed, or replaced a sign. I know this is hard to kind of see, but everything in this area, so you see like the orange kind of boundary signs, these are new signs that are being installed. Blue signs are replacements, and then the X's are signs that are just being removed. The individual color points on here is actually how we communicate with RoadSafe. Rather than them having to call us every time there's an issue, they just drop a pin and say, hey, got a question at this location, checking on it within the next day or 2, and we'll come back and make the correction. A lot of times it's going back to that sign placement procedure of right now, this sign is suggested to be installed right next to a existing signpost or an existing utility pole. Can we just put it on the utility pole? Like it's simple things like that, just to make sure that they're following the proper procedure. So that's what the little pins are. But for the most part, the real
red and green
stories.
ones, that's what the red and green ones are?
Yep, exactly. And the yellow as well. So those are more just kind of communication internally. But then the real storyline is the gray, which is what has been completed thus far. And you can see this was screenshotted this morning. So this probably has gone up since then. But we're at about 3,000 signs out of we'll say 4,000. This is our initial number. There's always the kind of cleanup after all of these types of big projects happen. So I'd love to say that we'd be done right when this hits 38.5, but once we do a little review, we'll confirm. And then one other thing I did want to mention on this project as well is the yard signs. We still have yard signs available. We've reordered them. These are accessible through community groups, council offices. We give them out in anywhere from 20 to 100 signs per those groups if they request them, and then they can send them out in their neighborhoods. It's not one or the other. This is front side, this is back side, or vice versa, whichever side you like better. And we want to make sure that we are utilizing that as well, because that is something that does help with our messaging as well. The more people see these types of signs, the more people know, hey, your neighbors want you to be going a little slower. And Joe, I see you have a question here.
Yeah, mine, and the same thing what Jamie had said, that Janelle actually said that, when she compared Chicago to Denver, that in Denver, we all know people running red lights, and that's just part of the nature of it. And the same thing with signs. I'm not sure if you don't follow it with the right kind of enforcement. I know that's not in your area, but it has to go hand in hand with enforcement, or else it's just a graphic image. It really doesn't mean anything to anybody. Probably the people who wouldn't speed anyway aren't going to do it. I should take that back. But there's plenty of people who go down, and I've seen them, and they go through red lights and everything else, and there's no compunction to actually follow what the city is asking them to do. So is that part of this, or how does that get funded? Not just putting the sign up, but having somebody enforce it. Thanks.
That's a great question. Ted's actually going to talk about that a little bit. The photo enforcement side of things, and then Dottie has very little. We can't do much on the enforcement side, but I'm sure you've seen the mayor's initiative to add more officers as well, and part of that is adding more traffic enforcement officers. So between that and what Ted's going to be speaking about, I think that'll cover kind of what your question you're asking.
Perfect. Thanks.
And Alan?
Yeah, thanks for being here, Mike, and everyone. We're really excited to have you guys here. It's a great topic. I totally nerded out on Ralph's presentation from last time and was looking at the Vision Zero plan over the summer. One of the things that got me really excited about it was looking at a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on, I'm reading from page 47 here, on arterials with a focus on the high injury network. I was wondering if that's been discussed in this study at all, or if you guys have any plans for that. You probably didn't see the board letter from this fall, but we actually said, like, hey, can you look at a focus on changing the signs, actually lowering the speed limit on some of those high injury networks that we've been seeing so many of the fatal and serious injury crashes on. I was wondering if the departments had any thought on actually lowering the speed limits on some of those corridors.
Did you want to take that, Mike, or do you want me to?
Go ahead, Ralph. Yeah, I think I can add on if you have any.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing up that question. We have lowered the speed on some of our high injury network corridors, but acknowledging that additional engineering interventions will need to be coupled with lowering the speed limit. So an example might be with our complete streets guidelines, when we're going in and redesigning a roadway to then design it for that lower level speed limit. This could be for just a random example, but like East Colfax, when we're revolutionizing the roadway, really changing the look and feel and the context, finding an opportunity to revisit that speed limit on that corridor. But just a couple examples, if you will. But yes, we had in the past lowered the speed limit on a few corridors. But, like I said in the opening topic here, speed is definitely a key area in terms of crash frequency and severity. And that's just, just looking at the data, we're using data to drive our decisions, and the lower that we can get those speeds in that range, the safer our streets will be. So,
and
one else, Mike?
One thing to add to that, and thank you for covering me on that, Ralph. I was going to cough into the microphone again. I was trying to avoid that. The rollout for that also is kind of following similar to what we talked about with the school zone rollout of there are those low-hanging fruit corridors that we've already changed a lot of the speeds on, but there are those larger ones that will happen less frequently but be more robust. So obviously, like East Colfax is the most extreme example, but then there's also the Santa Fe Drive where we added in bulb outs and took a drive lane away to then set the speed limit so that the road was designed to then be driven at 25 miles an hour, where previously with the additional lane, no bulb outs, it was designed to be driven at 30. So it's kind of works in two different ways where we do use the data to find those ones where we can say, hey, we can change the speed limit on this, and we don't anticipate much else needed besides just some sign installs. But then there's others. I'll use 56th Ave as an example again. Like that's going to be, if we're ever getting that down to 25 miles an hour, it'll take a significant amount of work to really slow that street down.
Another one in the hopper is Morrison Road too. If you've been participating in those public meetings, bringing that speed down to 25 on that corridor, and hopefully that'll knock it off our high entry network, which it currently is on. So
great, thank you all so much.
You're welcome.
And
I
see you have one more. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that was me. Sorry. I have just three quick questions, and I think actually the public comment touched on this a little bit as far as speed. I have heard kind of through the grapevine that there is an issue with the fire department and speed and the response times with that. How is that a barrier for you guys? Are you working on that? Has that been completed? Do you have any update? I get they're basically complaining about the response times with the speed bumps, with any signages of different speed zones and things like that. So I just kind of wanted to bring that up to see if you guys had any updates on that, since this is the plan moving forward to be changing, speed signs and all of that good stuff.
That's a good question. Maybe Amy can lean into the space in coordination with Denver Fire. I know that they are a partner on Vision Zero and definitely want to improve safety on our roadways for visitors and for our residents. So definitely in this together. Speaking of like our speed humps, making sure that they are in a spot that the wheelbase of the fire truck can or their apparatus can go over those without having to slow down too much because they just ride through those pillows, if you will. But I don't know if looks like Amy might be off camera, but
and that's
yeah.
Okay. My other question, related is so I noticed the map that you guys brought up with some of the signs that are changing. Is there any way that you could bring that back up really quick?
And while you do that,
if not, that's okay. I remember the slide. So I only see two. What's concerning to me is that there's only two. It looks like two pegs in Green Valley Ranch to be changed.
I can correct. I misspoke
Okay.
on that one. So that doesn't mean it's being changed. That means that there was a question by our field crews to the office about what needs to be changed there. Every gray dot that's on that map that was in Green Valley Ranch is a sign that's either being installed or replaced. So those two green dots just mean that we did a really good job in the office making sure that it was easy.
I was like, please, not just two.
No. That means that it was. Yeah, we did good on our plan in that area, and they just had a few questions. That's the only. Yeah, should have pulled those off before I shared that map.
Thank you. That was it. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I think Rolf, do you want to head to Ted, or are there any other questions?
Yeah, Ted, are you available to speak about our safety cameras and the new statewide law?
Ted Forrest with the Photo Enforcement Unit. Thanks for having me. I'm here to talk about the Senate Bill 23-200 that the governor signed into law back in June of 2023. What this really does is it procedurally and financially allows smaller jurisdictions to use photo enforcement. And Janelle, in the state of Colorado, it does work. Like you said, there's a lot of controversy around photo enforcement, but our numbers in Denver alone does show that photo enforcement works. That said, with the bill, it just changes some verbiage that, like I said earlier, would allow smaller municipalities to use photo enforcement in the roadways. But the biggest thing for us in Denver is that this will allow us to create safety zones, especially in our high injury networks. So Joe had asked earlier about, not just changing the speeds, but what about enforcement? This will allow us to address those high injury networks, which in the past, had prevented us from doing so. So currently, what the state law says, or it limits us to be able to enforce in 3 distinct locations. Speed limits where it's 35 miles per hour or less in a residential area, and we can only enforce around streets that border parks and also in safety zones. So in the past, roadways like let's say 6th Avenue on Broadway all the way down to the I-25 interchange, we weren't able to enforce there because it's primarily commercial. So now, hopefully, with the help of DOTI, with the help of CDOT, we can designate these areas or roadways in the city as safety zones and be able to use photo enforcement in these areas. So that's the part that I'm most excited about. The other thing too that I wanted to mention is that photo enforcement is a huge component of is one of the key components of this Vision Zero program. And yet, ever since we started, we haven't really expanded our program. The city and county of Denver has 4 red light intersections, comparing it to the city of Colorado Springs, which has 36. A city of that size compared to us, they're using it successfully, and we're not expanding our program in Denver. So one of our big thing too is the push to expand this program. It does work. Janelle, I hope you're listening to this, because I will be calling you and I'm going to be showing you what our numbers show and how photo enforcement really does work in Denver. Other than that, like I said, hopefully with DOTI's help and with in conjunction with relationship with CDOT, we'll be able to create these safety zones in Denver so we can enforce. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions about photo enforcement?
You had mentioned the 35 and below. You could not use the camera, but can you still use the traditional radar?
So we can only use photo enforcement in 35 and below. So any speeds higher than that, we can't use it in a residential area.
But you could
yes.
still use the traditional radar, correct?
Absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely. So we have police officers, traffic officers that do that for the higher speeds.
Looks like we have quite a few questions here. Julie?
Mine wasn't really on photo, it was from before, so I can wait if.
Let's go ahead and do it so we don't get too far, if that's okay with Rolf and Mike.
Yeah, it's more of a comment.
Sure.
I have huge concerns about these speed bumps because they make it really hard for people who use wheelchairs or walkers to get through the streets. And for example, like right now, because we don't enforce our shoveling ordinance, like everywhere I go is in the street. So like sidewalks are already not accessible, but both because of the snow and then all of the disrepair. So to be able to get through streets, having to go on speed bumps is going to be awful. I mean, for someone like me or Jamie, it just causes a lot of pain to have to bump over them. But like for people in a manual chair or someone with a walker, it's downright dangerous. Like people are going to tip over. So I actually think that would be undoing an accessible, it would be like creating inaccessibility. And in terms of the gaps, like I know on like 30, there's an area near my house on like 39th Street where they do have the gaps. They're really hard to see if you have any kind of visual limitations. I mean, I think like if you're totally blind and you have those kind of mobility skills, you might be able to figure it out, but it's very hard for anyone with depth perception to kind of really see exactly where they end. So those actually create some additional dangers, because I know for me, I can't see where they begin and end. So I'm trying to avoid them, and I go over half of them. And so I just think speed bumps I think there has to be a better way than speed bumps. And again, I do feel like that's undoing an accessible feature. And to me, that's an ADA violation.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that comment, and something that we can bring back to our engineers as they further evaluate and redefine or improve the design of those safety features.
Alan?
Yeah. Going back to you, Ted, I just want to say thank you for coming again. I think we last talked to you about a year or so ago, and we had talked about, we'd love to expand the program. I just want to say the board agrees with you. We all voted unanimously that adding photo enforcement was something that we wanted to do in our letter this past fall. What can we do to help expand this program, especially on our high injury network where, we've seen so many serious injuries and fatality crashes?
With the help of the mayor's office, we can present it to council, because ultimately they're the ones who's going to vote for the expansion, right? We have it as part of our vendor contract right now. We have a lot of new council members that are not familiar with photo enforcement. And so part of what we need to do as well is to educate these new council representatives. And we just need to get that ball rolling. Rolf and I have had numerous conversations about how we can do this. We kind of put a pause on it during the mayoral change. But now that we've got people in place, I feel that it's a good time for us to revisit this and push our agenda and get this program expanded. One of the things that was brought up, like Tinsley asked, was, how do we keep this program equitable? Our enforcements are really driven by the violation numbers, right? When we go to a location and get 2 violations within an hour, we're really not affecting change, because it's only when we issue these citations that changes the way people drive, right? So a lot of the decisions that we make on where we enforce is driven by that. And with red light cameras, when we selected the intersections back in 2008, that was all driven by impact, the number of crashes at those intersections. So that's how we keep it equitable, right? If it happens to be in certain impoverished neighborhoods, it's not there because we're targeting people. It's there because we want to reduce the number of crashes and the severity of it. So I'll probably reach back out to Rolf and have more conversations with him on how DOTI can help, the police department, push forward this agenda of expanding the program.
Great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I just wanted to chime in because I wanted to follow up with exactly what you were saying. For 2 reasons. And one, I want to jump back, first of all, to the first part of your conversation, which is educating the council members. I think even some of the council members were pretty active in the community in 2008 when they were taken away. And so a lot of their education about it and surrounding it is definitely geared towards that equitable standpoint. I think the view of the community, just putting it in places with a lot of citations or a lot of issues, while that's important, I think that it still needs to be spread evenly throughout the city, because I think that that's going to make the view of at least the program a lot more accepted, because it's not just in a couple of areas that have a high crime rate or a couple of areas that have a lot of traffic accidents. So that's number one. But I also think as part of the outreach, I think that, besides reaching out to the council members for input, I feel like the community should also have input in some of the locations. Not all, but some of them that you guys are even questioning.
Absolutely.
Putting in. Yeah, and doing some kind of like community survey or something like that. And I'd be happy to be a person of touch point for Green Valley Ranch. But I think that that's going to be important to get that community input so that they are aware and they feel like they have that input of where these lights are actually going. While yes, some are extremely important and they are needed in certain areas, but I do think that that's a way to kind of like make everybody happy to a certain standpoint of about these lights, to be able to give them a voice on where to put them.
What's really interesting is that in 2021 we did try to plot all our enforcement, all the locations that we enforced within the city, and it is nicely spread out. I send an email to dpdpeu@denvergov.org, and I'll be more than happy to share that chart with you. The other thing is, as far as community involvement of where we place our vehicles for enforcement, every time I do a meeting, I advertise on the website, because one of the first buttons that you'll see on our website is how to request enforcement. So apart from the number of violations that we capture at a certain roadway, a lot of our enforcements are driven by requests from district police stations, from their CROs, from citizens directly, requesting enforcement. Again, our big challenge is that we have such limited resources. We only have 5 photo speed vans for the entire city and county of Denver, that goes out in the morning and in the evening. And guess what? The first enforcement that these vans do, especially when school is on, is a school zone. Whether we get 1 or 100, we stay there the entire time that those flashing lights are, because we know it works. Our presence alone creates a visual deterrent. We feel that in school zones, it's well worth it for us to sit there and slow people down. Now, there are areas in the city where people will complain, oh, we see cars going down here, going 25 over the speed limit. We'll go down there 9 times out of 10, because we become a visual deterrent, right? We sit there for an hour, we see 26 cars and none of them are speeding, right? So it's really that dance of what the violation count that we're seeing, what we're getting requests from city council, council district, from police districts, and from citizens as well.
Well, I think this is the way that this advisory board could help support you too, is when you guys are ready to do some kind of location survey or getting input from the community. I'm sure a lot of us will be able to share on our social media or different platforms, or to just community organizations that we know around the city, so that we can get that out and spread that word about where they want some of this stuff. Because I think that sometimes those kind of links and those kind of forms get buried in the website. So I think that's one of the ways we can help.
Yeah, absolutely. Every time I attend these town hall meetings, it totally changes the way people think about photo enforcement. I just did one for District 4. I did a commander's meeting for District 4 last month, and there's this one lady, she was really, concerned about our enforcement on Sheridan, right across from Lakewood, from Sheridan there, where, the roadway dips and, and we're there, right? So she's like, I just, as much as, I appreciate enforcement, I hate the fact that you set up your vehicles where you trap people, right? So I asked her, she's like, I see you guys there all the time. I just feel like you're just trapping people. And I asked her, I said, have you ever gotten a ticket, right, on Sheridan? And she said, no, because I know you're there. So then I said, voila, our program works, right? So that said, there is some value to the visual deterrent part, unless we're issuing a ticket, unless it's hitting people where it does sting, it doesn't change the way they drive. So like Mr. Lewis said, we can change signs, we can reduce speeds, we can do all that, but without the enforcement component, then why should people comply, right? So um, so I feel like the program needs to be expanded. I feel like traffic enforcement cops should be increased, and like the mayor already has plans for that, and so I hope that all that goes well as planned. Thank you.
Ted, I had a quick comment and then a question. I think touching on the equity issue, I think definitely people in diverse neighborhoods deserve safe streets as well. And I know that like for a lot of challenged neighborhoods, and it is one of the most dangerous streets in the city. So like I would definitely speak towards I think that the equity component also goes on to survivability on the street. But I do think that one question that I had, and it looks like it's aligned with one that Jonathan had, you mentioned something about something going to council. Can you help us out with what that process looks like and how we as a board can support that? Is there one thing going to council, or is there work that we need to do advocating? Just trying to think of clear next steps for members of this group.
So we tried this in 2018, right? And so initially the process starts with the Denver Police Department. We present it to, or the Department of Safety. We present it to the mayor's office. The mayor's office helps us draft the proposal for expansion. Just much like any ask for money, right? And then it's presented to council. It goes on a vote, and then we do our expansion. So it's really about an ask, right? So what is the process of asking city council for money, right? For permission to do this? That's the same route that we would take. The thing though that's great about code enforcement is that our program is funded by the fines that we collect. So none of this is taxpayer dollar, right? We often get calls from people that that's gotten a ticket, spend our tax dollars better, right? Instead of these speed traps. But in reality, our program is funded 100% by the fines that we collect. In fact, for every employee, that we have that costs the city about $70,000 in pay and benefits and all that, it generates in fines collected 3, 4, 5 times more for the city, which in turn we can reinvest into these safety programs that we keep talking about, right? Um, on streets, on reconstructing, re-engineering intersections, all this stuff, right? We can greatly contribute to that. So it is in our interest of safety and body's interest, to have this funding, especially during this time that we're talking about, cutting, cutting budgets, to support, some of these mayor's programs. So it's a great win-win for everyone.
Sorry, just a specific question. Is there a timeline for when that's going to go to council, or when should we get involved, I guess?
Now, I think I'm gonna I'm gonna have to carefully respond to this because I think the city council looks at these proposals twice a year, one in the spring and one in the fall. And so let me get back with you on the specific timeline for that. But requests for expansions, requests for money, right? Because again, as you all know, um, expenses and income go in two separate buckets, even though they feed each other, right? So, let me dig into that more. Let you know, Jake, when we need to get this going.
Hey Ted, it's Nick. You're talking about the budget process, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so yeah, so the folks on this team is well aware of the budget process, and so yeah, what Ted is referring to is the same budget process that we walked through with you all last year. If that gives you any kind of better idea on timing.
Okay, so all funding for photo enforcement is something that will be addressed during budget season, effectively.
Correct. Yes. There you go.
Got it. Awesome. Joe,
thank you.
If you want to bring us home with the final question, then we need to get to elections and bylaws.
Okay, it's not a question, but I hope you all enjoy it. Well, I had a great idea. I think enforcement is the issue. And if we really want to save money, anytime we require a police cruiser, we just paint on it photo enforcement van and we just park it somewhere and everybody will slow down and it won't cost us a nickel. So if we can pick that up, because you're right, people slow down when they see that. And then, and then who knows? Is it, you're taking a risk. Is it a real one or not? So I think that's a great way to save money and get the program going. That's all.
The thing is with that, right? The citizens of Denver are smart enough to know, what they need to do to prevent getting tickets, right? So even during a live enforcement, you'll see vehicles slow down when they see the van and speed up right after they pass it. Yeah. So when you're compounded with the fact that we're not issuing tickets, it's just going to be, I think it's great. I think it sounds great that, we can put these vehicles around town and it being a visual deterrent. But at the end of the day, people catch on and they're just, it's just not going to benefit us in the long run. So 95. Oh, by the way, 95% of the citations that we issue are to first-time offenders. What does that mean? It means once you get a ticket, you learn your lesson and you will slow down. It works.
Awesome. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much, Ted, Rolf, and Mike. Really appreciate all the background, and we'll be in touch in ways that we can help, and hopefully you'll be in touch with ways that you need help. And so appreciate it.
Glad to present. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks all.
Thank you all. Good night.
All right. In the signs of a truly busy meeting, we actually now have our election for our officers and our bylaws. So real quick, one point of order is I know many of you have already replied. There's a Google form that I emailed to all of you where you can vote. If you haven't, you can do that during this time. And ideally, we'll close that up before this meeting is over and announce our new officers. So I just want to for it and fill it out. Now's your time. Anita and Nick, I was wondering if you could make me a host for the meeting. I want to bring up our bylaws.
Yes, to answer your question. Sorry, I'm trying to find you on the...
Yeah, me too. I'm over here. I'm like, where is Jake?
Over here.
No, like searching. I'm going to make you a co-host now.
There you go. Thank you both.
Thank you, Nicholas.
All right. So we do have a need to talk about our bylaws here. I know that those that were part of the process for making them and writing them in the first place are probably like, I thought we were done with this by now. There is a change that we think that Jonathan and Alan and I were talking, and we think we need to change this before we hold the election vote officially. And that is this line that any current board member with at least 1 year remaining on his or her term may be elected as an officer. The problem we have is that the terms that get appointed are on a different schedule than our elections. So we actually don't have good clarity on whether that's true for anyone or not. And actually, I believe it's all or nearly all of the people that are nominated and up for voting are not technically qualifying under this line. So our suggestion is to strike this line. Part of the reason is initially this was added to the bylaws to address potential vacancies and to prevent there from being like real issues with term overlap. But we do have a vacancy section that specifically addresses what happens once an officer leaves. So it's kind of an unnecessary provision, and it actually makes it really challenging for us to elect our officers. So in order to hold this election that we're currently holding at the same time, I was hoping you to all oblige me by helping make this bylaw change, and that is to strike this sentence from our bylaws. And I don't know if there are any questions about that. Lucia.
I don't have a question. I would just like to motion that we strike the line mentioned and move forward.
I second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Way to get it done. Aye.
All right. We're looking good so far. Let's see. Okay. I think I've seen a few people put their hands up and down. So why don't we go to nays? Do we have any nays on striking this provision? All right, now we can hold our election. Is there anyone that hasn't gotten the chance to vote that would like to vote? That I need to keep this election open for a little bit longer for? All right. I'm trying to give anyone time to unmute if they need to. We've got 14 responses, so we should have an adequate level of responses to announce our potential winners. But I just want to make sure that no one needs to fill it out still. So I'm going to stall for a few more seconds just in case you're loading it and shy to call out that you were one of the last to vote here. We won't hold it against you. All right. Oh, one snuck in. Oh, wait. Awesome. Thank you, Amy. All right. Okay, I think we have all the votes for the count of people in attendance here. And I can announce our new officers. Appointed to the role of co-chair, elected to the role of co-chair is Alan Cowgill. Congrats, Alan. And then elected to the role of secretary is Gary Johnson and a nail biter. Thank you everyone for voting. And we now have our new officers.
I demand a recount on the secretary's position.
that person abstained. Very qualified, I'm sure.
Yeah, ironically, Gary was the person that abstained. Everyone else voted for Gary.
I love how there was a question that it wouldn't be a peaceful transition.
I think I got to get together with Alan for.
Yeah, totally.
I'll connect with you offline, Gary. We do a little training session.
Congrats to you both. We did it. This was truly one of the most jam-packed meetings I think we've had in a long time. We covered a lot, and we get to end it with congratulating two of our teammates on their elections. So thank you all. If there's any odds and ends, we somehow ended up with an extra 4 minutes, which is truly shocking to me. But if anyone has anything they need to add before we close out the meeting here, feel free. Right. Not seeing anything. Thank you everyone for coming, and congrats again to you, Alan and Gary.
Thank you, Jake, for everything.
Thank you.
Everyone.
You.
Good night. I'm trying to stop the recording. I'm like, I don't think here. There's a million. Done.